So let's talk about helping some people become totally debt free. Let's talk about helping some people get their mortgage payments taken care of or get on their journey to owning their own home, right? Whether that be individually or through other entities such as trust, right? Now, we do talk a little bit about building a financial house, and today is no different. However, we invite you to ask your questions, and we're going to take it from there. So, if you've got some questions that you want answered, whether it be mortgages, or intelligent, how to start looking at owning a home, we want to start talking about tax strategies to help you, you know, reduce that debt. Okay, because we all know Mr. Sam comes around and that's one of the biggest, if not first and foremost of all expenses on everybody's list, right? They're number one. Number two, we want people to understand exactly how their interest rates are impacted or affect their principal and interest payments to their mortgage lenders. All right. Things you want to look out for. Okay. We also want to talk about things related to your retirement. So, what's going on with your retirement? Is retirement really just an age to most people, or is it really a number? Kind that you rub between the two fingers, three fingers, right? Well, two and a thumb. And how do we protect our not only our financial interests, but our mental, emotional, and legacy related plans, right? Like, what's our life looking like? Who do we want to have things that we're working so hard to attain, right? So, with that said, you've got questions, go ahead and throw those questions into the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and let's have an open conversation.
As far as mortgages are concerned, what rate should, let's say, like a first time home buyer or someone who's trying to get into the market right now, what are the rates that they should be looking at?
So that's a really good question, right? There are a couple of different things to take into consideration. Firstly, they do vary based on things like credit score and down payments amount and the specific lenders that might get chosen, right? So it's always a good idea to maybe shop around and compare rates from a few different lenders, okay? Additionally, you also got to think about some of the government programs that offer favorable rates or assistance for first-time home buyers. So it's really worth exploring. Okay, so it for each different person, what the rates look like or what rates are going to be favorable are going to depend on those things: credit score, amount that they can provide for down payments, not to mention closing costs, and you know, then you also got to factor in the other expenses that come with home ownership, property insurance, homeowners insurance. Uh, Depending on the state, I'm in Florida. Florida deals with hurricanes. Might be in a state that's close that deals with hurricanes or gets close to the hurricanes or deals with tornadoes or know, this year has been an interesting year because they even had earthquakes in New York earlier this year. So who would have thought that maybe earthquake insurance might become a thing in the great state of New York? Who would have thought it, right? So let's kind of build a scenario maybe, or let's dive in a little bit deeper if that doesn't already help. So As far as like government assistant programs, like kind of just to kind of touch on this, as it was one of the last things we mentioned, right? Um, got things like FHA loans, uh, or similar programs that may exist, right? And of course, like depending on the state, because FHA loan, that's a federal thing, right? States have different requirements or different laws or different options as well to their residents. So that's also something to consider. Like if you're in the home buying stages and you haven't purchased a home, you know, if the idea of relocating is something that the individual may be considering, maybe a good idea to also look at what kind of local provisions may also apply to those situations, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and again, kind of going back to some of the earlier points, you know, many of those things may be factored or determined by a person's credit score, right? Um, so person who may not have the best credit score may need to put some time and effort into improving the credit score, or they go to their loan providers. We've kind of touched on credit scores before, especially when it comes to looking at different loan providers, because each time you go to a different possible lender, and if they've run a hard inquiry, that's going to negatively affect the credit score. So, yes, please.
So what would be an ideal credit score for a lender to look at? And then, since we're talking about, um, credit scores and lenders
Right.
for that, that marriage, like what number would generally be like a number that they would look at where they're like, okay, we can do X amount of dollars.
Well, I know that with one of the lenders that I work with, right, they generally look at a score that's about 640 or above. If as long as the applicant has at least a 640, it's possible to work with. May not be the best options available, but again, reasons to start shopping around. Um, Once that's done, again, might want to just do some homework on, and it'd be advisable for anyone to do some homework to look at what their credit score is, what they may need to improve on their credit score before applying for any loans. That way, it's not like, oh well, what's wrong with my credit? Oh well, this agency says that your credit score is like 620 when these other two might reflect a 640, but we only use this one credit reporting agency, right? So that's also something, you may get to run around and you're using something like Credit Karma. You don't get all three. We know that. You don't get all three for free, at least. Or you get two, but you don't get all three for free.
All right.
So um but a 640 is usually a pretty good place to start. If you're close to that, again, look at all three credit scores. It's also going to be a pretty good idea to look at your FICO score. Okay. And you can look that up through Duns and Bradstreet as well, because they also do FICO scores or a Duns number as well. Um, there are actually quite a few different options when it comes to kind of removing bad credit history from off of your credit, right? And because we are talking about the things that affect the loan underwriting process, so the ability for the application to go through smoothly, right? The credit score is the biggest part of the application. That the credit score doesn't have a good history, then what's the point of even starting the application, right? Uh, Also in the chat, we also had 680 to 720 is also, those are going to be more favorable rates for people, to start looking at. But again, remember when you go into these things, something I'm going to suggest is that number one, let's take a bit of a poll. In the chat, I want you to put a one in the chat if you're going to do multi credit applications throughout the year.
Repeat that again.
Put a two in the chat if you're gonna do more than one credit related application issue, credit or loan. Put a two in the chat.
For more than one?
More than one. If you're gonna do more than one, put a two in the chat. Now, no one so far has responded, so I see a zero. Okay. Anyone else? If you're not going to be applying for any credit or any loans less than 2 times a year, okay, put that into the chat. Now, this is what I want to show, right? That based on what the chat has just said, it's probably a good idea for the majority of you to have a security freeze on your social security number, right? And considering why, I'll share that with you in just a second, okay? But it's going to be a good idea that if you're not applying for credit, you shouldn't allow anybody else to just generally have the ability to run a soft inquiry on your credit score. Because every time you get a credit card application in the mail, someone has done a soft inquiry on your credit score. It may disappear a couple of days later or something like that, right? But it's still negatively affecting your credit score. Okay, so if you're not planning on applying for credit, if you're not planning on applying for loans, if you're not planning on buying new property, right? Probably a good idea to have a credit freeze on your credit profile, right? Attached to your social security number. All right. Use that as a mean of protecting your credit worthiness from identity theft and fraud. Okay, because what's going to end up happening is if you've got that freeze on all three credit reporting agencies, anytime someone attempts to file or put an application for credit and they've got to go do a credit check through one of the three primary agencies, and there are more than just three credit reporting agencies, well, that's going to trigger a little bit of an alert. They're going to have to get in contact with you to remove the credit freeze so that way they can run the application. So it may seem a little inconvenient, but it gives you a little bit more peace of mind at knowing that, well, if you're not going to be applying for credit, you don't need to, no one else should either, right? And if you got a good credit score, it's probably an even better reason to go ahead and protect that because, they got those things out there, those CVN numbers, right? For people who want to attach their credit history to something else, but we've talked about those things before. Um, let's kind of keep pushing through this conversation, right? But
Yeah.
like what's the general thought towards that? Is it really such a bad thing to have a credit freeze on your social security number, your credit profile, if you're not applying for credit more than twice a year? Chat,
Yeah.
anyone? Right? So, and here's the reason why, okay? What month are we in?
May,
May, right? Practically June, but we're in May, right? And what was last month?
April,
What happens April 15th for most people all over the US?
taxes.
Tax season. And when does the majority of the identity theft and fraud occur throughout the year?
Oh yeah, that's when the most. because the checks hit.
Checks are hidden, April to now. And that's coming from one of our tax advisors right there. You know? So essentially between you, Social Security Administration, all right, the credit reporting agencies, what do you really need to have your credit profile unlocked for, right? Lock it up. Put a chastity belt on that thing, okay? Keep its innocence intact, right? Now, these are just ideas and thoughts to consider before a person gets a home, right? And absolutely right. You need to make sure that you keep the password, because if you forget it, you will not be able to access that credit profile ever again. They don't reset passwords. They don't reset passwords. They don't resend them out either. Okay, so be sure to keep that in place with your other important documents, maybe your estate planning documents. Okay, so that way, if ever your family needs to do something with your credit in the future, they have the ability to do so. Those people that you have in place to do that, right? Not a bad idea to have like an estate planning party. Hey, the estate planner's coming over on Saturday. I need you to come over. Why? Well, why not? You're doing some planning, right? It's another way of putting the entire family on notice. And as credit worthiness, the history of something that could potentially pass on in a user account. Okay? Um, for those that may be trying to apply for loans, and your credit score is a little subpar, possible, ask them if you'll put the Nautilus user account. That way, some of the history might be a lot longer than yours. Be for someone who's young, right? Like 18 years old, 17, 15 to 18 years old. Why would I say 15 to 18? Well, you still have emancipation in most states. And I believe the youngest age for emancipation is at age 15. So that doesn't mean that they'll be allowed to apply for credit. It just means that they'll be able to participate in the adult workforce, pay taxes. Oh, goodness. Who really wants to grow up? Who really wants to grow up? Oh, I want to get older, pay for all the expensive stuff.
I
I
can't
can't
wait.
I can't wait to pay the highest ordinary income tax rate. You know? So let's also talk about that. Okay. Real briefly, when it comes to taxes, okay, if a person may have a tax lien, okay, this is something that doesn't oftentimes get discussed, but we got our tax advisor on. Love for him to chime in and make a couple of comments on that. But if he doesn't, I'll tell you something. Tax liens are a real thing, not just something you see pop up on your YouTube. Okay? Tax liens are a real thing. All right. Tax advisor, would you mind giving us some input on tax strategies for also helping some of our listeners and viewers attain their goal of home ownership?
Absolutely. There's several different ways we can look at this. First of all, if you're a business owner, you can make sure that you can limit your tax liability. You can limit your tax liability by utilizing if you have children under 18 years old. And if you're under 18 years old, that you can have a $12,500 deduction because the standard deduction rate is $12,500. It may went up this year. So you can take that off and you can take that $12,500 into your account. Then we have the second thing, you have a secondary IRA or what we can IRA or Roth IRA. you can put $6,500 a day on basic IRA, and or you can do Roth, you can do a little bit higher. If you do it as a business, it's even higher than that. We can get into that another time. With the addition to savings, especially if you have a business. So if Chris didn't express it enough, the best thing to do is get a business, LLC, so you can write off different things in your discipline. And what's the IRS code? Make sure that you can prove that it's ordinary and necessary for your business to have it. And then within having that, you can now take off, like, for instance, what was my sister's name? Creative Care Service, on how she correlate art with health and mental well-being. Well, her art supply, her easels, her transportation, her car, all these things can be written off on your taxes. As far as a homeowner who got a W-2, all right, what we can do with a W-2, if you're looking to get the house, looking to get that house within a year or two, there is a way you can set up. It's called the 5 bank accounts. And within that, it's not a tax strategy, it's more like a saving strategy where you have 5 different bank accounts. I'll go through it quickly. That is the common bank account, the saving bank account, the emergency bank account, I would say the tax bank account, and your payment. And what those 3 things will do is a percentage. Your bills, your water bills, your tax bills, your food bills, your home bills, the mortgage comes out of the general, which is the largest, 60%. Then you have the 15, then you got 10, and you got 5. The 5% is your savings. So if something happened in your personal salary account, like 10%, you don't touch nothing else. You're set, you're sealed, you're delivered. That's it. Cannot do anything else. Do not pass go, and do not try to tap into your bill account. If your bills don't add up to what it's supposed to be, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to make sure we get our bills lower. Now, let's go through it. Like Prince talked about it last time, doing credit. What the hell? He said, when you look at what's necessary, what have you been taking out? Your newspaper subscription, magazine subscription, your Google Plus, whatever accounts you got, can you get rid of, squeeze out some money? Because the same thing as we're doing with the saving policy, when you want to increase your savings account, same thing you do when you save up for money for a down payment. And as far as the down payment, first-time home buyers, there's anywhere between 2 to 3%. I would advise you to get into a relationship with a credit union. And what do I mean by relationship? Open up a credit union account, especially in the neighborhood. Walk in, do an account, open up at $100, and go in there. If you just put in $5 in the account, it doesn't make a difference. They don't know. But they make sure that they see what? They see your face, and that you're going into the area, making a deposit, so then you can get friendly with the tellers and the bank managers, better yet, work with you to give you a better rate. So these are some of the tips that we can do to continue to get that dream home, and also to make sure that we are set up to make sure we're tax-free, because the goal for everything is to be tax-free. I love taxes. Why? Because at the end of the year, I will make sure I get all my taxes back. Because why? I make sure that everything I spend my money on is within the business. So it's why it's very important to have that business. Same way that we're the other partner that we have, PRI, they give us a 1099. Oh, that 1099. Well, I'm going to take off my Zoom account. I'm going to take off my port of my cable bill, of my printing cards, my flyers. Oh, the next book that I'm about to write, I'm going to take out a portion of that, because I'm going to put a portion in there on how to save money by using the other partners in our arsenal. So we have to be creative. Thank you, y'all.
Well, thank you. And that's coming straight from one of our tax advisors. Our only tax advisor currently. But he is building a business, and if you're interested in learning some tax savvy strategies, definitely want to chime in, tune in on Wednesdays every week, 7 p.m. Get in contact with us. We're here to help people get things that they want. Now, let's kind of go back into some things that Benaiah mentioned as well, because when we initially purchase homes, see them as assets, but really, is it truly an asset until you finish paying it off?
Never an asset.
It's never an asset until you finish paying it off.
You pay off that bill, right?
Now, something else that doesn't quite oftentimes get discussed is
Let's
amortization.
say it can become an asset if it's more than a single family house.
There you go. Now, we're gonna leave that for another time. Okay, that's just a little nugget, a little nibble. What we have in store for you later on in the coming weeks. All right, we have a lot of things that we have discussed when it comes to our finances. Right, but let's talk about really something like just a very briefly amortization. That basically means very smart way of deferring the taxes to another date and time. All right. So if you're a first time home buyer, along with what the government provides, not just the IRS, as far as like tax credits or deductions go, but all, it's not just personal, but also professionally and as a business owner or self-employed individual, right? But also consider, again, lowering those taxes, right? Because that's just another way of freeing up some more money for you to invest it into something else, right? And that might just mean, A, if you are self-employed, or if you're generating income outside of your regular 9 to 5, right, from a 1099 form of income, right? And that extra money gives you the opportunity to now justify home office and home office expenses, like Benaya mentioned, right? So even if you're door dashing it, or you're Ubering it, or lifting, some other things to also make sure that you itemize on your expenses, things like laundry. Oh, but I've got a laundry and a laundry unit in my home. That's true, but are you still spending money on laundry detergent? Right? If you didn't have that, would you have to go outside your home to do that? Right? If you lived in an upscale apartment, or you're one of the George Jeffersons, right? You own a dry cleaning service. People send you their clothes for you to clean, right? So laundry, aka uniforms, are definitely something for you to consider as a necessary operational expense. Okay, there are a lot. One of the things that I like about the tax code is it's like really going on a financial treasure. So this is something I'm going to encourage our viewers to do. Start looking into your treasury rewards, okay? Because that's who they are. They're the Department of the Treasury. Okay, and I have nothing bad to say about these people. All right, they're a business. They're there for a purpose. They're there to help the average taxpayer find ways to lower their taxable income, their taxable liability. Right. So take advantage of it. As our tax advisor mentioned, you're also doing one other thing that we haven't discussed enough, which is the importance of networking. When you open up those several different bank accounts, you're also networking, and now you're also establishing a relationship with your local financial institutions and becoming more familiar with how they operate, especially when it comes to credit unions, because they're membership-owned financial institutions. They're there for the people. They have the lowest service fees, offered some of the best or the lowest rates when it comes to loans or small business, right? For homes or small businesses. So, go ahead.
Yeah, you got. I'm gonna add one more gem. I told you wasn't gonna add no more nuggets, but you mentioned something about laundry detail. All right, now you can wash your clothes, your business clothes and laundry detail, but you like that designer jacket or that designer shirt or those shirts that look a little bit cool. Guess what? You can write that off for your taxes.
That's right.
All you have to do is put your logo on it.
There you go.
That's all. All you have to do is put
Gotta
your
put your
logo of your
logo.
company or the letters, you know, GRDEL. Guess what? That new Blazer just became a tax write-off. But I told you, no more nuggets. I'm off.
See, we're gonna get more people joining these calls just to learn some more of these tax saving strategies, right? I mean, because like, yeah, paying off the debt is cool. You know, like everybody, here's something that most people don't understand about their loan. Okay? The loan that you have comes as a result of somebody else loaning the bank their money. Some other financial institution is using money from somebody else to help you do what you want to do. And for those of us that put our monies into the banks, other reasons to have multiple accounts, such as a high interest savings account, that's probably one of the other reasons to have multiple accounts, right? Now, we talked about this very briefly last week because it was something that I shared with the kids, right? Goldman Sachs has a high interest savings account. Ally has a high interest savings account, and they're also online. Discover also has a high interest savings account, and it's also online, right? So when it comes to where to put your money at, when you want to have immediate access to it, you should not put it into an account that's not going to give you a high interest. Okay. Now, some of these different accounts, they do have different requirements. What was one of the banks that I was referring people to? HSBC, right? You have to have $100,000. And shout out to Creative Care Services who forwarded me this information. So you have to have $100,000 in an account in order to have a high interest savings account, right? And they had a few other stipulations and requirements as well. So when you're looking or shopping around for different banks where you want to put your money at, that's something to consider. Okay. Now that we've discussed debt stacking, like paying off the debt early, how to do that, look at your, like how much money are you spreading around towards your different payments, right? And instead of you paying, like if you have 5 different debts, right? A car bill, rooms to go, or IKEA. I don't know where you decide to shop at, and get your furniture. IKEA, I like IKEA furniture. It's low to the ground, like being close to the earth. Okay. So maybe IKEA or rooms to go. I don't know. Right?
Not rooms to go.
Okay, no rooms to go because we know rooms to go gets people.
Plus, their stuff is cheap. They delivered, and I had to send it back the same day.
Oh, hey, there you go. Right. And also thank you to Creative Care Services for putting the HSBC requirements for the account. All right. Good reasons to network. All right, guys. Because you never know who's going to share what kind of information and where you can get it at. Okay. So IKEA, right? What else? Netflix, or no, not a Netflix, an Amazon Prime. I saw this as one of the recent debts on one of my clients' profile. Right? What else you got? Chase or Capital One. Most people have 2 credit cards, right? So like you're looking at all 5 of these debts and you're paying the minimum payments on all of them, but you put like $5 here, you put $10 there, you put $100 on some of these others. What if you took all that extra money that you're putting on top of your minimum payments and you just put it towards one, right? Now, all those extra payments going towards one, it doesn't change your budget because most people say, I'm going to put I'm gonna pay extra towards my bills this month. They say a number in their mind, and they're gonna allocate however much money they can put towards each different bill, right? So $5 here, $10 there, $20 here, $70 there, whatever, right? $100 going in. But if you put that 100 into just one of those debts, maybe just the smallest one just to start with, right? That debt that was costing you $25 or $50 a month, you got rid of it. Now you got $50 plus the other $100 that you had before going towards the next debt. And that next debt is, let's say 75. So the 75 plus the 50 plus the other 100, it's 200 and some change going there, right? You keep doing that. You keep doing that. All right. So it's another way to like kind of create a snowball effect towards paying the debts off faster. So that way you free up more of your money to do more of what you want with it. Okay. So, and for those kind of going back to the credit thing, if your credit score is a little off, talk to the creditor. All right. See if they'll work with you. Hey, can you give me some good reporting history if I pay off this debt consistently for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, etc. Right? So now, talked about the taxes, talked about the creditors, talked about where to put your money at in between, right? Freeing up some of your money. Once we free up some people's money and get them closer to being debt free, what then do you start to do with your money? All right. Leaving it a high interest savings account is one thing, sure, but it's time to start looking at investing. Okay. Now your investment choice is going to be dependent on a few different things. Number one, your age is 2, your income. 3, your risk level, all right? Your risk tolerance. 4, what are you interested in? And then assessing whether or not that's a suitable investment for you, okay? And then 5, it's time horizon, okay? So let's go with the most important of all of them, which is probably going to be time. Now, if you have less than a year's work need for the money that you want to invest, you don't want to put it into something that's you need like a couple of years to allow to grow, right? I want you to look into what's called money market accounts. Right now, a high interest savings account is kind of a money market account, but money markets usually mature in less than a year. Okay, they have a shorter maturity date or maturity time than a year. Okay, so if let's say that you wanted to invest wanted to do something with your money for 6 months to 9 months, money market's not a bad idea. Certificate of deposit, a CD, probably not a bad idea also, okay? But then if you're looking at like investing into in a way where you become a lender, then you're probably interested in something more related to debts. Okay. Now, when I say debt, I mean debt securities. That means bonds. So you have government bonds that mature in a year. So if you have a year's like time frame, you want to see your money grow, you want to protect your money while it's invested in that bond, look at bills, treasury bills, right? Then you have a few other bonds that mature semi-annually, but eventually even those other bond types will become money market accounts once they're under a year, okay? So, and then if you've got like a longer time horizon and you're interested in both stocks, which is ownership of a company, and you're also interested in lending money to a company, creating a bond or an indebtedness to you. So then, but you don't want all the complexities of trying to figure out the marketplace. The mutual funds might be a good option for you as well, to consider. So then when you're looking at mutual funds, they have interest rates that go 9% or better, right? And for those types of interest rates, they have, they'll double in a period of time that you could calculate through the rule of 72. So rule of 72, basically it approximates how long it takes you to make, your investment double based on the interest rate. So what you simply do is you divide 72 by the interest rate as a whole number. So like if you got 9%, you wouldn't divide 72 by 9%, you would divide 72 by 9. That would equal 8. Okay, so that would equal 8 years for the investment to double, right? Along with that, it's going to be a good idea for you to look at the historical data of those investments or of those mutual funds. Find ones that have a good track record, and always bear this in mind when it comes to investments. There's never ever a guarantee of profit or of loss, right? There's no way to guarantee a profit. There is no way to guarantee that a loss won't happen, right? So these are things to also be aware of, because that'll help you assess your level of risk, right? And you also have other things out there for investment purposes, such as ETFs, exchange traded funds. These are pretty inexpensive. They're not professionally managed though, unlike mutual funds. So things to take into consideration, right? Now, one last thing that I will say about money that you decide to invest, you've got to have a plan of action in mind. You got to be committed to sticking, right? You sit down with me or anyone on my team as financial planners, we look at it holistically. And again, as we mentioned at the beginning of this call, holistic means we take into consideration your lifestyle, what you want to do, who you want to be doing, the things you want to do with, and also budgeting it into your lifestyle. Okay, you have to budget your lifestyle into the equation, right? How do you want to live? Where do you want to go? What do you want to eat? What happens if you get sick? Like, is your plan of action dependent on you continuing to work? Okay, how long can you continue to work? Okay, if something were to happen and we had to give this money to someone else, who do we give it to, right? But also, when you hit that income level or that investment time frame, then ladies and gentlemen, it may be time to start talking about retirement through annuities. Okay, an annuity is another type of investment vehicle. Gives you an opportunity to generate or create a stream of income for yourself for the remainder of your life. And it could also be, passed on to those that may survive you, if and when that time comes. Okay, but annuity may be something to also consider if you've already hit that income level. You're ready to stop working. The amount of money that you could put into an annuity to give yourself a nice, suitable lifestyle. You won't know what that is until you start planning, right? And with that said, just remember, it's never the plan that fails, but failing the plan,
Yes.
it does. Right. So that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. Do we have a question? Well, I guess like our Q&A. I think we covered almost all the bases on home ownership, for getting to home ownership, calculating different rates, right? What rates do we want to look out for? Shopping around, networking with different financial institutions, right? Not just not just for the sake of saying, oh, I've got an extra piece of plastic in my wallet, but to say like, no, I have 5 different possible lenders that are all offering me great rates because I'm a member of their bank, right? Other options that you can also do. We're going to discuss using your business or getting some of the benefits you want for your business in the future, all right? Whether you're self-employed, regularly employed, or unemployed, okay? We'll show you how to make it all work, all right? And of course, we're going to continue to help more people totally, if not entirely, debt-free, right? So, any questions before we go? No? Don't forget, yes, sir.
No, I put one in the chat, but that's not for this though.
Okay. So, what I do want to say before we go, I want to reintroduce our sponsors, Indigo and Quill Publishing in the state of Georgia. Definitely get in contact with them if you need any assistance in the great state of Georgia for your self-publishing needs. All right, what steps to take, you know, some of the tricks that you may want to figure out before you go start doing this project. Because hey, they make it easy for you. Vinayak Concepts, whether it's your house or the house that your soul is living in, aka your body. He's got some great superfoods and some great ways to help lower some of your utility bills. All right. Hey, there we go. I gotta see that a little bit closer. Hold on.
Change it to.
Let's also not forget Creative Care Services, as well as Sweet Lyrical Harmony. All right. Showing you how to take passions and create them into therapeutic devices, testimonies to share with the world, right? So, and also myself, Dr. Francel, holistic financial planner, here to help make it all holistic. So with that said, appreciate you all for this time, and we'll see you next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m.